Ever feel like humanity's relationship with Earth, it needs a bit of an upgrade?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a growing movement suggesting exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's less about, the tree hugging and more about realizing Earth has like this information platform we can barely grasp, let alone mimic.
Right, right. And that's what we're diving into today, this idea of a conscious Earth.
Hmm.
We've got this fascinating book, same title, and it's all about how the planet processes information, but in ways, honestly, more sophisticated than even our fanciest tech.
Yeah, forget the old Gaia theory, right? Like Earth as this self-regulating system. That was so Gaia 1.0. We're
Right.
talking Gaia 2.0 now. Imagine like humanity not just living on Earth, but actually integrated into its operating system.
Okay, unpack that a bit for us. Gaia 2.0. Does that mean we're all like suddenly part of some planetary hive mind?
Not exactly a hive mind, but think of it this way. You wouldn't try to drive a car without understanding, like, the engine, right?
Right.
Gaia 2.0 is kind of about that. Recognizing humanity's impact and learning to participate more responsibly in Earth systems.
So less steering wheel hog and more co-pilot on Spaceship Earth.
Exactly.
I like that. This book's title mentions an information platform revolution, though. That sounds a bit sci-fi now.
It might sound like it, but honestly, it's happening all around us, all the time. Think about the way nature processes information, the flow of energy through ecosystems, the communication between trees, even through underground fungal networks, or the balance of biogeochemical cycles. It's amazingly complex.
It's like the planet's running its own code. But instead of ones and zeros, it's using sunlight, nutrients, the very elements themselves.
Makes you wonder if if we've been looking at technology all wrong.
And what's fascinating is that by studying these natural information systems,
Mm.
we can actually get insights to build better, more sustainable technology ourselves.
Okay.
Imagine cities that are designed like forests,
Wow.
or energy grids that mimic the efficiency of fungal networks.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's where this gets really exciting. But of course, with great power comes, well, the potential for things to go sideways.
Yeah.
What are some of the risks we need to be mindful of here?
Yeah, I mean, it's crucial to acknowledge that even tinkering with these systems, even with good intentions, we can have unintended consequences.
Right.
So let's take a hypothetical example, right?
Okay. Imagine we develop nanobots to pollinate crops. We've driven bee populations to near extinction.
Sure, seems like a logical solution.
Right, on the surface.
Yeah.
But what if these nanobots malfunction? Or worse, they mutate and outcompete the remaining natural pollinators. We could create an even bigger ecological disaster.
It's like that old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
We definitely don't want to mess with that delicate balance of nature.
Exactly. And then there are the ethical considerations. Like, do we even have the right to collect data from, every corner of the planet, or even if we can? What about ecosystem privacy? These are questions we really need to grapple with as we go deeper into this whole conscious Earth idea.
Before we get too lost in the ethical weeds here, let's ground this with some real-world examples of where this conscious Earth idea is being put into practice. And I know just the place to start, Zimbabwe. So last we left off, we were mentally teleporting ourselves to Zimbabwe.
Right.
Zimbabwe again.
Okay, so nestled in the bustling streets of Harare, there's this building that's like a testament to the power of biomimicry, the Eastgate Center.
Okay.
Imagine like a shopping mall that stays cool and comfortable all year round
Okay.
without conventional air conditioning.
Okay, now that's just showing off. How on earth, literally, did they pull that off?
By taking inspiration from termites.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not, those towering mounds they build, those aren't just piles of dirt.
Right.
They're like marvels of natural engineering. They have this intricate system of vents and tunnels
Wow.
that circulate air and regulate temperature with incredible efficiency.
So they basically said, hey, termites have been doing this for millennia. Let's see what we can learn. That's brilliant. But it makes you wonder what other secrets nature is holding out on us.
You hit the nail on the head. That's the beauty of this whole conscious Earth idea. It's
Yeah.
about opening our minds to the possibility that the solutions to our biggest challenges
Yeah.
might already exist just out there in the natural world.
It's almost like we've been so busy trying to invent the future
Mm-hmm.
that we forgot to consult like the best engineer out there, nature itself.
Exactly.
But this begs the question, how do we, like in our everyday lives, even begin to tap into this ancient wisdom?
It starts with like a shift in perspective.
Huh?
Think Think about how you usually interact with nature.
Yeah,
Do you see it as something separate from you? Something to be admired from a distance?
right.
Or even worse, like something to be conquered and controlled?
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap, especially living in such a tech-dominated world, you know?
Absolutely. But what if, instead of seeing ourselves as separate from nature, we started to see ourselves as part of it, like interwoven with these intricate systems, influenced by its rhythms, dependent on its well-being?
Okay, I'm with you so far. But how do we actually make that shift?
Yeah.
Right, from theory to practice. It can't just be about hugging trees.
Right.
Well,
Not that there's anything wrong with hugging trees.
right, of course not.
But you're right. It needs to be more than a feel-good sentiment.
Right.
It requires us to become, more mindful, more observant, more appreciative of the natural world around us.
So take a hike, smell the roses, listen to the birds sing, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Engage your senses, notice the patterns, the interconnectedness, the sheer ingenuity of nature's design. Once you start paying attention, you'll be amazed by what you discover.
I could already feel my blood pressure lowering just thinking about it. But how do we go from appreciating nature to actually applying its lessons to our lives, our tech, you know?
Think about it like this. Every object you own, every piece of technology you use, every structure you inhabit, they all started as raw materials extracted from the earth.
Right.
Now imagine if, instead of just taking from nature, we learn to work with it.
Yeah, okay.
That's where biomimicry comes in.
We've touched on that a bit, but give us a refresher. How does biomimicry actually work, like in action?
Okay, imagine like looking at a spider web, right?
Yeah.
And seeing beyond its delicate beauty,
Right.
recognizing the incredible tensile strength of those silk threads.
Right.
Stronger than steel, pound for pound.
Wow.
Scientists are actually studying spider silk to develop new, super strong materials for everything from bridges to artificial tendons.
So that walk in the woods could literally spark the next big technological breakthrough. What
Right.
you're saying is the answers are all around us.
Yeah.
We just need to know what questions to ask.
Precisely. And those questions can lead us down some really fascinating paths. Take the way forests manage resources, for example.
Yeah.
They've evolved over millions of years to create these incredibly efficient closed-loop systems
Right.
where nothing goes to waste.
Sounds a lot like that circular economy idea we hear so much about these days.
It's the same principle in action.
Right.
In a circular economy, we aim to design out waste and pollution, keep products and materials in use, and regenerate natural systems. It's about mimicking those cyclical flows of nature where waste from one process becomes food for another.
So no more landfills overflowing with discarded plastic and electronics.
Ideally, that's the goal. It requires a fundamental rethink of how we design, produce, consume, and dispose of things.
Right.
And it's not just about reducing our environmental impact. It's about creating a more resilient and equitable system for everyone.
It all sounds very promising. But let's be honest. We live in a world that often feels, at odds with these ideals. How do we bridge that gap between the way things are and this vision of a conscious Earth?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And the answer, as with most things, it's multifaceted. It requires individual action, collective effort, and a systemic change.
Okay, let's break that down.
Yeah.
Just talked about the individual action, being mindful of our consumption habits, connecting with nature.
Yeah.
But what about that collective effort part? What does that look like? Last time we were talking about bridging that gap between, the current state of things and this vision of a conscious Earth. We talked about individual action, changing our habits, being more mindful. But what about that bigger picture, that collective effort needed to really make this happen?
Yeah, it requires us to move beyond those individual actions and start thinking about how we create systemic change, Like, we need to shift the systems, the structures that actually govern our society, the economy, policy, education, to align with these principles of interconnectedness and sustainability.
So it's not just about swapping out our light bulbs. It's about, rewiring the entire grid, metaphorically speaking. But those systems, they feel so vast, so entrenched. Where do we even begin to create that kind of change?
Yeah, it can feel overwhelming, absolutely. But remember, these systems, they're ultimately created and maintained by people, right?
Right.
It starts with shifting the conversation, raising awareness, demanding better from our leaders, businesses, even ourselves.
So it's about using our voices and our votes to push for policies that actually support this transition.
Thanks.
Things like investing in renewable energy, promoting circular economy models, protecting biodiversity hotspots.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of, supporting businesses that are already leading the way. When we choose to buy from companies that prioritize sustainability, ethical sourcing, regenerative practices, we send a clear signal that we want a different kind of future.
It's like voting with our wallets, right?
Yeah.
Showing that there's a demand for these products and services that are actually in alignment with these values. But what about, I mean, there are those who argue that these changes are going to stifle economic growth, that it's a choice between progress and the planet. What would you say to that?
Well, I think that's a false dichotomy. The old model of like endless growth on a finite planet, it's just not sustainable. We need to evolve our understanding of progress. A truly conscious Earth approach recognizes that a healthy planet, it's not a barrier to prosperity, it's the foundation for it.
It's about recognizing that our long-term well-being is completely, like, inextricably linked to the health of these ecosystems that we depend on.
Precisely. And that's not just an environmental issue, it's an economic issue, it's a social justice issue, it's a human rights issue.
Hmm.
When we talk about creating a more sustainable future, we're talking about creating a more just and equitable future for everyone.
It's about shifting from a mindset of extraction and exploitation to a mindset of regeneration and reciprocity.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we are not separate from nature, we are a part of it. And as part of this interconnected web of life, we have a responsibility to be good stewards, to care for the planet as it cares for us.
It's a big shift, a fundamental change in how we view ourselves, our place in the world. But, it feels hopeful too, right? Like there's a path forward, a way to navigate these complex challenges and create a future where both humanity and nature can thrive.
It is hopeful, and it's a journey that requires all of us. It requires scientists and artists, entrepreneurs and activists, policymakers and everyday citizens, all working together to co-create this vision of a conscious Earth.
It's about rediscovering our interconnectedness, rekindling our sense of wonder, and remembering that we are all part of something so much larger than ourselves. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you would want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
That each of us has a role to play in this unfolding story. The Earth is speaking. Are we listening? The future is not something that happens to us, it's something we create together.
That's a powerful thought to leave us with. It's been a fascinating journey exploring this whole idea of a conscious Earth. We hope this deep dive has, sparked your curiosity, maybe challenged your assumptions, maybe even inspired you to look at the world around you with fresh eyes.
Remember, the Earth is not just a planet we live on, it's a living, breathing system that we are a part of. The more we understand and respect this conscious Earth, the more we unlock the potential for a sustainable and thriving future for all.
And on that note, we'll sign off for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep listening to the whispers of our extraordinary planet.